The galaxy was never silent, yet on that day an unusual stillness spread across the stars. The alien outpost Epsilon 9, a shining fortress of glass and crystal, floated quietly near the edge of the Orion Rift. Normally, it buzzed with life, scientists from hundreds of species working, debating, and exchanging knowledge. But now every corridor, every viewing deck, and every communication channel was filled with one thing only: fear. The screens around the station showed a massive cosmic storm. It was not an ordinary storm of space dust or charged particles. It was something new, something alive with energy that broke every known rule of physics. The storm's heart pulsed like a beating sun, and every time it pulsed, the readings spiked far beyond what even the oldest alien computers could process. The Union scientists named it the Maelstrom. It had already consumed 2 uninhabited systems and was moving fast toward the Vega line, where 5 colonies existed. Billions of lives were in danger. Inside the main control hall, alien delegates argued. Voices overlapped in panic. Screens flashed red with warnings. Some species wanted to evacuate the nearby systems immediately. Others said it was hopeless. The Maelstrom's energy was too powerful, too unpredictable. In the middle of this chaos, a calm voice spoke from the human delegation's corner. Commander Elias Ward stood tall, hands behind his back, his eyes fixed on the glowing map of the storm. His short-cropped hair and weathered face gave him the look of someone who had seen too many disasters, but never surrendered to any. "The numbers don't matter," he said. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried through the hall. "We stop it before it reaches Vega. That's all there is to it." A dozen alien eyes turned toward him, some wide, some doubtful, some even angry. An insectoid scientist from the Trin Collective hissed. "Stop it? Impossible. We calculated 1 trillion megatons of energy. No technology can handle that." Elias looked at her calmly. "Maybe not yours," he said, "but ours will try." Another alien, tall and silver-skinned from the Valtori Empire, folded his arms. "Humans are brave, but foolish. You think courage replaces logic?" Elias smiled faintly. "No, but sometimes logic gets in the way of doing what must be done." The room fell quiet. Even those who disagreed could not deny there was something strange about the humans. They were the youngest species in the Union, barely 100 years since joining, and yet they had already developed a reputation for doing the impossible. Finally, the station's commander, Zira Thule, an old, wise being of pure light, floated closer. "Commander Ward," Zira said, voice echoing softly like music, "you truly believe your people can face this storm?" Elias nodded once. "Yes, give us 1 ship, access to the stabilizer core, and we'll take it from there." Zira hesitated. "You understand? No one has ever returned from a maelstrom surge. It destroys everything." Ward's eyes did not move from the storm projection. "Then we'll be the first." A ripple of disbelief passed through the room. Even Zira was silent. Finally, Zira said, "Very well. You have permission. But know this, if you fail, the Vega line will fall." Elias looked back at the gathered species and simply said, "We've got this." The words were simple, almost casual, yet the way he said them made every alien pause. Something about human confidence, quiet, unshaken and fearless, made them all step back. Hours later, the human starship Horizon stood ready in the docking bay. It was not beautiful like the alien vessels. It was built of metal and scars with thick armor plates and a powerful human-made reactor at its core. Every alien ship used advanced energy lattice hulls that shimmered like water, but the Horizon looked heavy and solid, like it could punch through a planet and keep flying. Inside, the crew prepared. There were only 7 of them. Commander Elias Ward, mission leader. Dr. Lena Cross, ship's medic and biologist. Ravi Das, chief engineer and problem solver. Lieutenant Haru Tanaka, pilot and navigator. Mira O'Connell, communications officer. Aaron Blake, tactical systems and shields. And Juno, the ship's AI, a digital intelligence with a calm, human-like voice. Elias walked through the corridor, his boots echoing softly. Every crew member was focused, nervous, but not afraid. When he reached the control deck, the stars beyond the viewport shimmered with the approaching storm. It looked like a wall of blue fire spreading across space. "Status?" Elias asked. Haru replied, "Engines online, stabilizer secured. All systems green." Ravi added, "If the readings are right, we'll hit turbulence the size of a planet once we enter the first energy layer. But if we keep the manual controls active, we can adjust faster than the autopilot. Elias nodded. Good, then we fly manual. Mira turned from her console. Sir, the alien command wants to know our plan in detail. They're asking for probabilities. Elias shook his head. Tell them we're not sending numbers. Just tell them we're on our way. Mira smiled softly. They won't like that. Doesn't matter, he said. They'll like the results. As the docking bay doors opened, hundreds of alien observers stood on the viewing platforms. They watched the human ship drift forward, engines glowing white. No one spoke. Zirathul's voice echoed softly over the comms. Humanity, you are brave. May the stars protect you. Elias replied. We'll bring your stars back safely. Then the horizon shot forward, into the dark. At first, the journey was smooth. The storm shimmered like a curtain of light far ahead. The crew worked in silence, checking systems, monitoring power, and running calculations. Then, as they neared the maelstrom's edge, the ship began to shake. Energy waves slammed against the hull. The lights flickered. The sensors screamed with errors. Juno's calm voice reported, entering the maelstrom's outer layer. Hull stress at 30% and rising. Hold steady, Elias said, gripping the console. Outside the viewport, lightning the size of continents spread through the storm clouds. They weren't real clouds, but massive plasma fields twisting like living things. The colors shifted, blue, gold, and green, and each flash felt like the heartbeat of something vast. Dr. Cross whispered, It's beautiful. Elias nodded, eyes still forward. And deadly. Ravi shouted over the rumble, stabilizer field losing balance. I need more power to the shield grid. Take it from the backup engines, Elias ordered. That'll slow us down. Better slow than gone. Ravi grinned despite the chaos. Copy that. Back at Epsilon 9, the alien council watched in disbelief. The video feed shook constantly, full of static and flashes of light. But the human ship kept moving forward, a Valtori scientist muttered. They're insane. The field strength should have vaporized them minutes ago. Another from the Trin Collective hissed. No species survives that kind of energy. They must be gone already. Zira raised a glowing hand. Watch, she said softly. They are not gone yet. Inside the horizon, the turbulence grew worse. Panels sparked. Pipes hissed. The noise was deafening, but every human stayed at their post. Elias shouted, We're almost at the first core point. Ravi, prepare the stabilizer. On it, Commander. The ship jolted violently. Dr. Cross fell, but Haru caught her and pulled her back up. Smoke filled the air. The temperature dropped suddenly as energy drained from the systems. Juno's voice spoke again, softer now. Warning, internal temperature at critical low. Recommend partial retreat. Elias looked out the viewport where the storm's heart glowed brighter than any sun. No retreat, he said firmly. We go through. Then he opened the comms to Epsilon 9. Command, this is Horizon. We are entering the maelstrom. Beginning stabilization run. Static answered him for a few seconds. Then Zyra's voice came through, faint but clear. Humanity. All of us are watching. Elias smiled slightly and replied, Then watch closely. The ship's engines flared brighter, and Horizon disappeared completely into the storm. At Epsilon 9, every alien in the hall stared at the fading signal. Some prayed in their own languages. Others bowed their heads. For a moment it seemed the human ship was gone. But then faintly the signal returned. The humans were still fighting, still pushing forward. And for the first time the galaxy saw what made humanity different. They were not the strongest, not the smartest, not the oldest race among the stars. But they were the only ones who looked at the impossible and said, We've got this. The ship Horizon was now deep inside the storm. The view outside was like nothing anyone had ever seen before. Blue and golden lights twisted together in giant waves that stretched across space. Each wave looked like it could crush a planet. The ship trembled as it pushed forward, but it did not stop. Commander Elias Ward stood at the center of the bridge, his hands gripping the metal railing. Sparks flashed from broken wires above his head, but he didn't blink. The air smelled of smoke and electricity. Report, he shouted over the noise. Lieutenant Haru Tanaka, the pilot, struggled to keep the ship steady. Her hands moved quickly over the manual controls. We've lost automatic navigation. I'm flying blind. The storm keeps pulling us off course. Ravi Das, the engineer, yelled from his station. Shield strength is dropping fast. We're down to 40%. Elias turned to Dr. Lena Cross, who was monitoring life support. How long before the oxygen systems fail? Lena checked her readings. 3 hours at most, if we're lucky. The commander nodded slowly. Then we make those hours count. At that moment, a loud rumble shook the horizon. A beam of energy hit the left wing, throwing everyone off balance. Mira, the communications officer, fell hard but quickly pulled herself back up. Commander Epsilon 9 is calling us, she said, trying to clear the static on her screen. Elias looked at her. Open the channel. The holographic display flickered, showing the glowing figure of Zirathul, the alien commander. Zyra's face was calm, but the light that made up her body flickered with worry. Commander Ward, she said, your ship is taking too much damage. You must turn back. Elias shook his head. If we turn back, the Vega line dies. That's not an option, Zira hesitated. You humans are brave. But bravery cannot defeat nature. Elias looked out at the raging lights of the storm. Maybe not, he said quietly, but we can surprise it. Before Zira could respond, the signal broke again. The connection was lost. The crew kept working even as the situation grew worse. Ravi ran from one control panel to another, hands covered in grease. The stabilizer core's overheating, he shouted. If it melts, the whole ship goes with it. Elias nodded. Then cool it down, Ravi blinked. With what? We've got no coolant left. Elias thought for a moment, then smiled faintly. Use the emergency fuel. It's freezing cold in those lines. Redirect it, Ravi stared at him. That's not how it's supposed to work. Elias gave a quick grin. When has supposed to ever stopped us? Ravi sighed, shaking his head, but he was smiling too. All right, Commander. You win. He rushed to the engineering bay, shouting orders to the maintenance drones. Sparks flew as he connected pipes that were never meant to be joined. The smell of burning metal filled the air. For a few tense minutes, no one spoke. Then Ravi's voice came through the intercom. Coolant restored. Core temperature dropping. The bridge erupted in cheers. Even Elias allowed himself a small, proud smile. Nice work, Ravi. Keep it steady. Always. Commander. Back at the alien station Epsilon 9, the watchers couldn't believe their eyes. A group of Trin scientists surrounded a holographic display, muttering in disbelief. They are doing the impossible. They have stabilized the reactor using fuel as coolant. It should explode. A Valtori physicist added, No logic supports this. No simulation would approve such action. Zirathul, the commander, watched quietly. Her light shimmered softly as she said, Perhaps that is what makes them different. They are not bound by logic. They are bound by will. Around her, the alien scientists grew silent. No one dared to argue. Inside the horizon, the crew kept pushing forward. The storm's energy field was getting stronger. The ship's lights flickered again. The crew had been awake for almost 20 hours straight, but none of them stopped working. Dr. Cross checked on each crew member, handing out oxygen masks and pain relief patches. She stopped beside Elias. You've been standing since we entered the storm. Sit down for 5 minutes, Commander. He shook his head. Can't, we're almost at the center, she frowned. You keep saying that, but what happens when we get there? Do you even know? Elias smiled faintly. We plant the stabilizer, we activate it, and we save a few billion lives. Simple as that, Lena folded her arms. You always make it sound simple. It's not, Elias looked at her. I know, but they need us to believe it is. Dr. Cross stared at him for a moment, then nodded. All right, Commander. But don't you dare die out here. He smiled again, softer this time. Not planning to. The next few hours were chaos. The horizon crossed deeper into the storm. The energy fields became so dense that time itself began to twist. Alarms screamed that the ship's internal clocks were running slower than external readings. Haru struggled with the controls. Commander, the magnetic field is bending our trajectory. I can't hold it. Elias stepped beside her, gripping the co-pilot handles. Together, then, we'll fly it manually. The ship shuddered again. For a second, everything turned dark. Then slowly the lights came back. They had reached the storm's eye, the center. It was the calmest, most terrifying place they had ever seen. Instead of lightning and chaos, there was silence. Floating in the middle of the calm was a giant glowing sphere, the storm core. It pulsed like a living heart, sending out waves of light every few seconds. Each pulse was so powerful it made the ship's metal frame groan. Elias whispered, That's it. The Maelstrom's heart. Ravi stared at the readings. It's massive. Energy level is beyond measurement. We can't get closer without overloading everything. Elias turned toward the stabilizer crate. Then we do it here. Haru, bring us to position. The pilot nodded and slowly guided the ship to a stable point near the edge of the glowing field. They worked fast. Ravi and Mira opened the cargo hold, pulling out the stabilizer, a large metallic device shaped like a sphere with glowing panels. It was designed to counterbalance unstable energy, but no one had ever tested it against something this powerful. Elias looked at the crew. All right, listen up. We drop the stabilizer here, anchor it to the maelstrom's gravity, and activate it remotely. Once it starts, we get out before the field collapses. Simple plan, Ravi laughed weakly. Simple, huh? Sure, Commander. Dr. Cross adjusted her suit. And if it fails? Elias replied calmly. Then at least we'll know we tried. No one argued. The cargo doors opened and the stabilizer floated out slowly, held by magnetic clamps. The energy waves shimmered all around it. Haru kept the ship steady while Ravi and Mira monitored the readings. Position locked, Ravi said. Ready for activation? Elias took a deep breath and nodded. Do it, Mira pressed the switch. The stabilizer began to glow brighter and brighter, absorbing the wild energy from the storm. For a moment it worked perfectly. The readings dropped, the field steadied, and the ship's sensors cleared. Then suddenly the lights turned red. Warning! Juno's voice echoed. Stabilizer overload. Power spike detected. Ravi shouted. The core is rejecting it! The storm is adapting to our device. Elias slammed his hand on the console. Shut it down! I can't. The controls are frozen. The stabilizer's glow became blinding. The maelstrom reacted violently, throwing energy blasts in every direction. The horizon shook as if caught in a hurricane. Elias shouted, Everyone brace. The storm roared louder than thunder. The ship spun uncontrollably. Alarms filled every corridor. Haru struggled to regain control. Engines offline. We're being pulled in. Dr. Cross held onto her seat, yelling, We need to eject before we're crushed. Elias looked at the stabilizer readings again. The device was still there, still glowing, but something strange was happening. It wasn't breaking apart. It was sinking. Ravi stared at the numbers. Wait, the storm's pulse is changing. The stabilizer is matching its rhythm. Elias realized what was happening. It's learning. It's stabilizing itself through resonance. The others stared at him. Is that good or bad? He smiled despite the danger. It means it's working. Back at Epsilon 9, every alien in the command center watched the readings flatten on their screens. The maelstrom's violent waves were slowing down. The colors began to dim. The impossible was happening. An alien scientist whispered, They're actually doing it. Zyra watched silently. The storm, which had terrified every species, was finally calming. Then she spoke softly to no one in particular. They said, We've got this. And perhaps they truly do. Inside the horizon, the crew cheered as the reading stabilized. But Elias raised a hand. Not yet. We're not done. We have to secure the stabilizer before it breaks again. Everyone went back to work instantly. No hesitation, no fear, only determination. The maelstrom, the unstoppable storm, was no longer just a threat. It was a challenge humanity had chosen to face. And as the horizon moved deeper into the glowing light, every alien watching across the galaxy began to understand why humans were different. They didn't fight because they were fearless. They fought because they refused to give up. The horizon floated inside the heart of the maelstrom, surrounded by silence and shimmering light. The colors outside the viewport had softened from furious gold and blue to calm silver waves that rolled through space like ocean tides. For the first time since entering the storm, there was peace. But it was not the peaceful kind that came with safety. It was the silence before another fight. Commander Elias Ward stood in front of the main console, staring at the readings. Stabilizer field is holding, he said, but we're still not out of danger. Ravi Das, the engineer, looked exhausted but proud. His face was smeared with grease and his uniform had burn marks. Sir, the stabilizer synced with the storm's rhythm. It's keeping the maelstrom balanced for now, but if that rhythm changes, it'll fall apart in seconds. Elias nodded. How long until that happens? Ravi shrugged tiredly. No idea. Could be an hour. Could be 10 minutes. Dr. Lena Cross, the ship's medic, approached with a small scanner. Commander, most of the crew needs rest. We've been awake for almost 30 hours. Oxygen levels are dropping too. Elias gave a small smile. Rest later, Doctor. First we finish the job, Lena frowned. That's what you said 10 hours ago. He looked at her, his eyes calm but filled with something heavy. And we're still alive because of it. Meanwhile, back on Epsilon 9, the alien observers watched the human signal with growing disbelief. The feed was unstable, full of static, but the humans were still transmitting. Against all logic, the storm's energy readings had begun to fall. The maelstrom, which had terrified hundreds of worlds, was losing its power. In the main hall, Zyra Thul, the luminous alien commander, turned to her team. What are the new readings? A Trin Collective scientist responded, his wings trembling. It makes no sense, Commander. The human ship should have been destroyed hours ago, yet the maelstrom is stabilizing. They are changing it. Another alien from the Valtori Empire said softly, they are rewriting nature itself. Zira watched the glowing map of the storm, her light flickering like candlefire. No, she said quietly. They are reminding nature that willpower still exists. Inside the horizon, the calm didn't last long. A deep vibration echoed through the ship. Warning lights flashed red again. Juno, the ship's AI, spoke in her calm, human-like voice. Alert, gravitational instability detected. Maelstrom rhythm shifting. Ravi cursed under his breath. Here we go again, Elias shouted. Everyone to stations. The crew rushed to their positions. The view outside darkened as new waves of energy began to form. It looked like a storm within a storm. Haru, the pilot, gripped the controls tightly. The stabilizer's losing sync. Elias asked, can we realign it? Ravi scanned the data. Not from here. The signal delay's too big. We'd need to activate it manually from the stabilizer itself. Everyone froze. The stabilizer was floating several hundred meters away from the ship, right in the middle of the energy field. Going out there meant certain danger. Dr. Cross stepped forward. That's suicide, Commander. Elias looked at her, then at the glowing sphere outside. If no one goes, the Vega line dies. Billions of lives. The ship shook violently again. The lights dimmed. The sound of twisting metal filled the air. Elias made his choice. Suit me up. I'm going. The bridge went silent. Everyone stared at him. Ravi stood up suddenly. No, sir. You can't do that. Let me go instead. You're needed here. Elias shook his head. You're the only one who understands how to keep this ship alive. I need you here. Dr. Cross stepped closer. Then send a drone. We can't risk, Elias interrupted gently. Drones can't make judgment calls. This will need a human hand. The doctor's eyes softened, but her voice stayed firm. You always think it has to be you. Elias smiled faintly. That's what commanders are for. Haru stood, her voice breaking slightly. Commander, please. If you die out there. He looked at her, calm as ever. Then you fly us home. Minutes later, Elias stood in the airlock wearing a heavy exosuit. The hum of the life support system filled the small chamber. The others watched through the glass. Dr. Cross handed him a small patch for his wrist. This will track your vitals. Don't be a hero out there. Just come back, Elias gave a small nod. Heroes die. I'm planning to live. The door opened and the light of the storm poured in. Bright, endless, alive. Elias stepped out, each move slow and steady. Outside, the storm was beautiful and terrifying at once. The stabilizer floated ahead, glowing faintly in the sea of energy. He could feel the vibrations through his boots, even though there was no sound in the vacuum. Juno, patch me through to the bridge, he said. Connected. Commander, the AI replied softly. Elias took a deep breath. All right, team. Let's do this together. Back on the bridge, everyone worked in sync. Haru guided the ship's lights to illuminate Elias's path. Ravi watched the stabilizer readings. Mira handled communication, keeping his signal clear through the interference. Dr. Cross stood silently, eyes on his vital signs. Every beat of his heart showed on her screen. Elias reached the stabilizer. It was huge, glowing with unstable energy. The outer plates had cracked from the storm's power. He touched the side gently and sparks of blue light ran across his suit. Ravi, he said. I'm at the core. What do I do? Ravi's voice came through the static. You'll see a small control panel near the lower surface. You need to open it and reroute the energy pulse manually. It'll bring the stabilizer back in sync. Elias found the panel. It was half melted, but he forced it open. The circuits glowed with golden light like veins of fire. "All right," he said, "I see it." Ravi's voice grew more serious. "Be careful. The moment you touch it, the energy will surge. You'll have about 30 seconds before it overloads your suit." Elias smiled. 30 seconds is a lifetime. He placed his hand on the control node. The light flared instantly, so bright it almost blinded him. His whole body shook as power coursed through the suit. The crew watched from the bridge, helpless. "Commander, your vitals are spiking," Dr. Cross shouted. "You have to pull back." Elias gritted his teeth. "Not yet. Almost there." The stabilizer began to glow brighter, syncing again with the storm's rhythm. The violent waves slowed. The reading stabilized. Ravi's voice was loud with hope. "It's working. You're doing it, Commander." But the energy grew stronger. The stabilizer cracked further. The heat inside the suit rose dangerously high. Dr. Cross's voice trembled. "Elias, please." "You'll die!" He closed his eyes. "Not today." Then with one final push he completed the reroute. The stabilizer flashed with pure white light, and suddenly the storm went silent again. The maelstrom stopped moving. The readings fell to 0. The danger was gone. Elias let go and drifted backward, exhausted but alive. His breathing was heavy but steady. "Mission complete," he said softly. Back on the bridge, cheers erupted. Ravi slammed his hand on the console. "He did it. The storm is stabilizing completely." Haru's eyes filled with tears. "We're going home." Dr. Cross smiled through trembling lips. "Bring him in." The Horizon's mechanical arm reached out and pulled Elias back toward the airlock. The crew watched every second until the door finally closed behind him. As the chamber filled with air, Elias removed his helmet. His hair was soaked with sweat, his face pale, but his eyes were calm. Lena rushed to him, scanning his vitals. "You're insane," she said, half angry, half relieved. He smiled weakly. "Told you I'd live." While the crew celebrated, the storm outside continued to calm. Across the galaxy, the readings reached the Galactic Union's networks. Billions of aliens saw the impossible numbers. The maelstrom's energy was neutralized. On Epsilon 9, Xyrathol watched the screens as the last violent waves faded into nothingness. Her voice was soft but full of awe. They did it. The humans truly did the impossible. Around her, alien scientists lowered their heads, speechless. A young alien whispered, "How did they do it?" Zyra replied, "Because they believed they could. And when they said, 'We've got this,' they meant every word." Hours later, inside the Horizon, the crew finally rested. The ship was damaged, the systems weak, but they were alive. Ravi sat near the engineering bay, fixing a broken pipe with quiet satisfaction. "You know," he said, "if we survive the trip home, no one's going to believe half of this." Haru laughed softly. "Then we'll just have to show them." Dr. Cross checked on Elias again. He was sitting near the viewport, staring at the calm silver clouds outside. "You're thinking about the next mission already, aren't you?" she said with a smile. Elias didn't answer for a moment. Then he looked at her and said quietly, "No, I'm just thinking how beautiful hope looks when it finally wins." Back at Epsilon 9, the Alien Council made a quiet decision. From that day forward, the humans would no longer be seen as newcomers or reckless explorers. They would be seen as something else entirely. The species that looked into the storm and said, "We've got this." The Horizon drifted quietly in the calm of the storm. For hours, the maelstrom had been stabilizing, thanks to the human crew's bravery and ingenuity. The glow of the stabilizer was steady now, matching the pulse of the storm perfectly, or so it seemed. Commander Elias Ward stood at the bridge, observing the energy readings. His crew was tired but alert. Ravi was in the engineering bay repairing minor damages, while Haru checked the navigation systems. Dr. Lena Cross moved quietly between stations, monitoring life support and crew vitals. For a moment there was a rare sense of peace. Elias allowed himself a brief smile. Perhaps they had done it. Perhaps the maelstrom would no longer threaten the Vega line. But deep in space, a new pulse began to ripple through the heart of the storm. It was subtle at first, a minor fluctuation in energy that could be overlooked. Juno, the ship's AI, spoke calmly but firmly. "Commander, energy fluctuation detected. The stabilizer field is weakening. Estimated failure in 12 minutes unless corrected." The calm of the bridge vanished instantly. "What?" Elias shouted. How can that be? It was stable. Ravi's voice came urgently over the intercom from engineering. The core's power is fluctuating. Something inside the maelstrom is adapting again. The stabilizer can't keep up. Haru gritted her teeth. We're too close to the core. If it goes, the ship doesn't survive? Elias clenched his fists. Then we have one choice. We finish this manually. I'll go out there myself. Dr. Cross stepped forward. Commander, no. You can't. You've been out there already. You're exhausted! Elias shook his head. Then someone else has to make the impossible happen. And no one else can. The crew fell silent, knowing he was right. He had already proven what humans could do, but this would be the greatest challenge yet. Minutes later, the airlock opened again. Elias suited up, feeling the familiar weight of his exosuit. He adjusted the straps and took a deep breath. The stabilizer floated ahead, glowing faintly, its panels vibrating in sync with the storm. But the vibrations were uneven now. Juno, he said, guide me precisely. I cannot fail. Coordinates locked, Juno replied. Proceed with caution. Energy spikes expected. The first step outside the horizon was like stepping into another world. Space was alive with color, twisting violently. Waves of energy rolled past him, making the suit's sensors scream constantly. But Elias walked steadily forward. He ignored the fear in his chest. He had a job to do, and failure was not an option. Back on the horizon, the crew watched anxiously. Every pulse of the stabilizer's light reflected in their eyes. Haru gripped the console as she tried to keep the ship steady. Ravi muttered over his hands, recalculating energy flow. Mira relayed updates to the bridge, her hands trembling slightly. Dr. Cross held a small monitor, watching Elias's vital signs spike with every pulse of the storm. He's pushing too hard, she whispered. The suit won't hold much longer. Juno's calm voice responded. Commander Ward is adapting to suit limitations. Manual stabilization is in progress, the crew exchanged looks. They had witnessed impossible acts before, but this was different. The human was facing not just the storm, but the storm's very heart. Elias reached the stabilizer and touched the main control panel. Sparks of energy danced across the surface. The pulse from the maelstrom hit him immediately, shaking the suit violently. Juno, he shouted, reroute the energy. I need full control of the stabilizer. Command accepted, Juno replied. Energy diversion in process. For a few seconds, the stabilizer's panels glowed brighter, the pulse of the storm slowing slightly. Elias felt a rush of relief. It was working, at least for now. Then the ground, or rather the invisible floor of space, shook violently. The stabilizer's outer casing cracked further, the glowing energy threatening to explode. Juno, I need more power. Divert everything to the stabilizer. Elias yelled, his voice barely audible inside the helmet. Diverting power from ship systems. Warning, life support and shields will weaken, Juno replied calmly. Elias didn't hesitate. Do it! The ship shuddered as the energy moved through the stabilizer. He felt the heat and force coursing through his hands. His muscles ached, his suit alarm screamed, but he held on. Back on the horizon, the crew held their breath. Ravi's hands flew over the engineering console, rerouting the ship's remaining energy. Haru fought to keep the horizon steady, barely reacting to the violent pulses that shook the ship. Commander Ward is pushing the stabilizer beyond limits, Ravi shouted. If it fails now, we lose everything. Mira's eyes widened. We can't lose him, not now. He's humanity's only chance. Dr. Cross's hands trembled. We just have to trust him. There's nothing else we can do. Outside, Elias worked quickly. He manually adjusted the energy conduits connecting circuits that were half melted. Sparks flew across the stabilizer, burning holes in his gloves. Each adjustment slowed the storm slightly, but the maelstrom fought back, throwing new waves of energy. He remembered why he was here. Not for glory, not for himself, but for everyone relying on him. For the Vega line, for billions of lives. Almost there, he muttered, sweat and grime covering his face inside the helmet. Just one. More. The storm roared, brighter than ever. The stabilizer quivered violently. Then in a sudden flash of white light, the panels locked in sync. The pulse of the maelstrom slowed dramatically. The waves of energy softened. The impossible act, something no one believed could happen, was beginning to succeed. Back at Epsilon 9, the alien council watched in awe. Look, one scientist gasped. The storm's energy is falling. It's stabilizing. Another whispered, it's impossible. No species should have done this. Zirathul floated quietly, observing the glowing map. Her voice was soft but full of respect. They promised they would do it, and they are keeping that promise. The room was silent for a long moment, filled only with the steady readings of the storm. No alien spoke for fear of breaking the moment. Elias had completed the stabilization manually, but it came at a cost. The suit's integrity was failing. The temperature inside rose dangerously high. Every movement was agonizing. But he held on, refusing to step back. Juno, prepare extraction, he said through gritted teeth. I'm not leaving until the stabilizer is fully secured. Extraction sequence ready, Juno replied. Warning, continued exposure may exceed human safety limits. Elias nodded. Noted. Begin as soon as we confirm stabilization. He watched the stabilizer's glow grow steady, the energy fields outside slow to calm waves. The storm was no longer violent. It was quiet, almost peaceful. The impossible had been achieved. Humanity had stared into annihilation and refused to blink. With careful steps, Elias began to move back toward the horizon. The energy pulses of the storm had dropped to safe levels. The stabilizer now functioned as designed, maintaining a balance within the maelstrom. Back on the ship, Ravi, Haru, and Mira prepared the mechanical arm for extraction. Dr. Cross monitored Elias's vitals, which were dangerously high but stable. The crew held their breath as the arm reached out, grabbing the stabilizer first. Then, with careful precision, they guided Elias back into the airlock. The doors closed. He collapsed into the chamber, gasping for air. Dr. Cross rushed to him, checking every system. You're alive, she said, relief flooding her voice. That's all that matters. Elias smiled weakly. We did it, he whispered. We actually did it. Ravi patted his shoulder. I didn't think anyone could do it. But you did, Commander. Haru smiled through tears. We believed in you. Elias looked at them all. No. We all did this. Together. Outside, the storm continued to calm. The energy waves flattened, the colors faded into faint silver, and the maelstrom was finally neutralized. Across the galaxy, every species watching the live feed fell silent. The human crew had done the impossible. They had faced annihilation and emerged victorious. Zirathul, still glowing softly, whispered, They said it, we've got this. And they truly did. For the first time, aliens across the galaxy did not look at humans as reckless newcomers. They looked at them as something entirely new, a species who could confront the impossible and win. Inside the horizon, the crew finally allowed themselves to rest. The stabilizer was secure, the maelstrom neutralized, and humanity's courage had been proven. Elias sat near the viewport, staring at the calm, silver waves of the storm. We promised we'd get this done, he said softly. And we did. Dr. Cross nodded. Yes. And now the galaxy knows what humans can do. Ravi added, I think even the aliens might start believing it too. Elias smiled faintly. They'll have to, because we proved it. And for the first time in weeks, the horizon floated through space in silence. Not fear, not chaos, but quiet triumph. Humanity had stared down the impossible, and won. The horizon glided slowly through the empty stretch of space, its hull scarred from the storm, but its crew alive and triumphant. Outside, the stars shimmered like scattered jewels, far calmer than the raging maelstrom they had just faced. The stabilizer floated securely behind the ship, its glow dim but steady. Inside, the crew moved quietly, exhaustion heavy in their limbs but victory lighter in their hearts. Commander Elias Ward sat near the viewport, staring at the stars. For hours, he had replayed the events inside the storm in his mind. The flashes of energy, the crashing waves of power, the moment when he had touched the stabilizer and pushed it to its limit. Dr. Lena Cross approached him quietly, carrying a small cup of warm liquid. You look like a man who's seen a lifetime in a single day, she said softly. Elias took the cup, hands trembling slightly. I suppose I have. But it wasn't just me, Lena, it was all of us. Every single person on this ship, she nodded. Still, it was impossible. No one else would have dared. He smiled faintly. Then they don't have to be human. Far away on the alien station Epsilon 9, the council had convened again. Every species that had once doubted humanity now watched the incoming signal of the horizon. The humans were returning, alive, victorious, and carrying proof of their impossible feat. Zirathul, the luminous commander, floated in front of the council hologram. Her light flickered softly with awe. They promised they would stabilize the storm. And they did, she said quietly. They did what no species has ever done. A Valtori delegate tilted his head. It is unimaginable. We expected destruction, yet they return unharmed. A Trin scientist whispered, They have rewritten the rules of what is possible. Zira smiled. Not rewritten. They have reminded the galaxy what courage and willpower can do. They have shown that determination can succeed where power alone fails. The council remained silent, struck by the truth of her words. Inside the horizon, the crew prepared for re-entry into safe space. The ship's systems were strained from their journey, and the stabilizer's power still required careful monitoring. Ravi Das worked quickly in the engineering bay, welding and repairing fractured circuits. Sparks flew from his tools, but he moved with practiced precision. The ship's been through hell, he muttered. But she'll fly home just fine. Haru Tanaka, the pilot, tapped on the controls, her face pale but focused. We'll make it. I just hope the universe is ready for what we've done. Mira O'Connell, communications officer, glanced at her screens. Signal to Epsilon 9 is stable. They'll see us coming. Prepare for the questions. Dr. Cross checked the crew's vitals one last time. Everyone's alive. That's the only answer they really need. Elias watched his crew, pride swelling in his chest. Then let's go home. As the horizon emerged from the Maelstrom's region, the first of the alien ships approached. Sleek, shimmering vessels surrounded the human ship, scanning cautiously. Zirathul's voice came over the comms. Commander Ward, you are clear to dock. The council awaits, Elias nodded. Acknowledged. Prepare for docking. The alien ships formed a protective perimeter as the horizon slowly approached Epsilon 9. Inside, humans and aliens alike held their breath. Outside, billions of eyes across the network tuned in to witness the return. The docking clamps locked. The horizon shuddered, then held steady. For a moment there was silence, a quiet anticipation unlike anything the galaxy had known. Then the doors opened. The humans stepped out, one by one. Each carried the marks of the storm, scrapes, soot, and exhaustion, but also something far greater, pride and courage. Elias Ward led the way, his uniform torn but his posture steady. The council and observers fell silent, struck by the sight of a species that had stared into the impossible and returned victorious. Zirathul floated forward. Commander Ward, she said, her voice soft but full of power, you and your crew have done what no one believed possible. You have faced the maelstrom and returned. Humanity has shown us the true meaning of courage. Elias bowed slightly. We only did what was necessary. The Vega line lives because we refused to fail. That is all. A murmur went through the assembly. Aliens from every species whispered in disbelief. Some shook their heads. Others bowed. One young Valtori delegate stepped forward. We have seen countless races attempt the impossible. None have succeeded. But humans have done what even the oldest species could not. Across the viewing network, billions of eyes witnessed the same scene. Aliens and humans alike could see the crew standing proudly, stabilizer secure behind them. Proof of the impossible laid bare. News of the horizon's success spread instantly. Across the Vega line, colonies that had prepared for evacuation now cheered in relief. People flooded streets, lifted their voices, and celebrated the courage of humans they had never met. Zirathul addressed the assembly. Let this day be remembered. Humanity has proven that even in the face of overwhelming odds, courage, unity, and willpower can defy the impossible. They have reminded the galaxy that even the youngest species can change the course of destiny. The council erupted in applause, a sound filled with awe, respect, and humility. Back on the horizon, Elias and his crew finally allowed themselves to breathe. Dr. Cross checked their vitals one last time. You've earned rest, all of you. For the first time in weeks, sleep will not betray you. Ravi leaned back in his chair, exhausted. I don't think anyone's going to believe the story of what we did out there. No simulation, no report could capture it. Elias smiled faintly. Then we show them every detail, every spark of energy, every second of fear and courage. They need to see what humans are capable of. Haru nodded. They won't forget it, Mira added. Especially now that the maelstrom is neutralized. The proof is right there. Elias looked at the stars beyond the viewport. And this is just the beginning. Humanity doesn't stop at the impossible. We keep going. We keep exploring. And we keep proving what we can do. In the weeks that followed, the Horizon and its crew became legends. The maelstrom, once feared across the galaxy, was now a symbol, not of destruction but of human courage. Every species that had witnessed the impossible began to see humans in a new light. They were no longer just newcomers. They were a species that faced annihilation and said, "We've got this." And they meant it. On Epsilon 9, Zirathul convened a special assembly. "Let this mission be recorded in the histories of every species," she said. "Let humanity's courage be remembered, for they have shown us that the universe bends not only to power, but to will, to determination, and to hope." The young Valtori delegate whispered again, awed. "Perhaps humans are the future of the stars." Back aboard the Horizon, the crew prepared to depart for Earth. Their ship was battered but alive, their spirits stronger than ever. Elias watched the stars pass by, reflecting on what had happened. "Do you think the galaxy understands now?" Dr. Cross asked softly. Elias turned to her, a small smile on his face. "They will. They've seen us face the impossible and return. That speaks louder than any words ever could." Ravi laughed quietly. "And they'll never forget it," Haru added. "They'll remember the courage, the teamwork, the human heart." Elias looked at them all, pride swelling. "And someday, when the next impossible challenge comes, they'll remember that humans never back down. We don't wait for miracles. We make them happen." As the Horizon soared homeward, leaving the calm maelstrom behind, a message echoed across the galaxy. "We've got this." Not as a boast, not as arrogance, but as a promise that humanity would continue to face the impossible, no matter how dark, no matter how vast, and no matter how terrifying. The galaxy had witnessed the impossible, and humanity had delivered.